Oh, nerds. The big key when doing any type of straight line work is to make sure you have a fun. If you want to zoom out a little bit,
Yeah.
so I can show my whole hand and arm, because this one typically comes down to how you rest your work and control your workplace.
Yeah.
So I'm at a standing desk, right? So I have my elbow height on my desk and my forearms lay flat on the table. And then I hold the miniature supported in my right hand, and I'm a lefty, so I paint with my left hand. And then it's all about control of the brush. And I tell people that you want to start holding a brush like you would a pencil. It's the same grip for me, pencil to brush, but it's a lot different in how you use it. With a pencil, we tend to write from our wrist. We just kind of learn that as you write, you're doing it kind of from all of your knuckles and your wrist. You have a lot of motion depending on the letter. With painting and pulling straight lines, you want to get used to using in my case, I use my middle finger and I push with my middle finger. So my middle finger is applying pressure to the brush this way, and all my thumb is doing is really giving a little bit of resistance to keep it straight in a line. Don't use your wrist at all. Your wrist is a ball joint, and your wrist moves in an arc. So let's get some paint and I'll show you what I mean. Right, if I just get a lot of this yellow paint on here, right, I'm going to over-exaggerate, but if I were to just do this, right, touch, and then only move with my wrist, you can see that it pulls an arc and not a straight line, okay? And that's just the normal movement of the wrist. So it's just wrist motion, keeping your wrist steady will not pull a straight line. So you have to balance that. And it's easier to just take, if you want to zoom in now.
Yeah.
It's easier to just take your fingers, take the wrist out of the situation. For me, at a standing desk, this is pretty easy because my arm is laying on it, so my wrist doesn't have to hold any of the balance of the brush. All my weight is on my front arm. And now I'll touch here, and then I'll start pulling or pushing with my middle finger and allowing my thumb to do a little bit of back pressure, and now I can control that line and pull a straight line. Okay? So you want to get used to this kind of motion where it's just your fingers doing the work and no wrist, because that's going to allow you to do like a lot of really quick striations. I can do this. You see me do a lot of textures, and that's exactly how you do that. You just kind of whip the brush in straight lines and you get that shading and texturing going, which you can't do if you're doing it with your wrist, or if you get a little sloppy and all of your brush strokes start being curves, then it gives a totally different texture, and on a flat panel may not look right. So you've always got to remember that. But that's really it, right? Is just kind of pushing with my middle finger. My forefinger could be taken out of the equation. It just helps balance the brush in my hand, right? But it's really just your middle finger, or my middle finger and my thumb in this case, and I'm just doing this, right? To do straight lines. This just helps keep a grip on the brush so it doesn't feel like it's going to pop out of your hand or flip sideways, right? So the forefinger is not really doing anything. It's just those two fingers. Now, there are people who are really good at line work, right? And they will hold it, and they're just good at setting like these two fingers. And on bigger work surfaces, you can just put the brush down and then move your whole hand as one apparatus along, and you're not moving anything. You're pulling from your shoulder, right? Yeah. That's how you do like pinstriping on cars and bikes and stuff. You wouldn't move, because we're talking about doing it in a small area, right? My middle finger and my thumb won't do much of a longer line than like that, yeah. Right? Because out here it gets all squirrely, right? So I'm only going to really be able to do maybe an inch and a half, 2 inches tops with that. But in the scale we're working in, that's plenty. Right? And especially when you're doing very small detail, you don't want to have your shoulder be pulling it, because your shoulder's ability to do that fine resolution is very minimal. When you move your shoulder a little bit, you get an inch long line, right? So it's the whole physics and geometry of like lever length, right? So I'm just going to straighten up, the line here. I've already got a bunch of the lines done, but I'm just going to do this, and you get your brush set there, and then I just use my forefinger and my thumb, and I pull right down the edge of that line. And then I fill in. When I fill in, I'm less concerned with straight lines. I'm just going for fill paint, but it's the edges that are the big key, right? And I'll turn it, because I always pull the line towards me. You can't do that same method, and you can see how this line is a little thicker up at the top and thinner down at the bottom, so I need to straighten that out. So we'll do the same thing. I'll just kind of make sure that I get that line, get the brush located here to where it thickens the bottom out, And then again, just using my middle finger and my thumb, pull that to where it blends into the upper half. So just a short pull. But I'm always rotating the model to make sure that I'm pulling and pushing the paintbrush the exact same way with each brush stroke, because I just get finer control that way.